Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the portrait artist and painter, Monsieur Theodore Gentilz. Monsieur?
I am your instructor, Monsieur Gentilz, and I ask that you not be late for this class. Also, as you come into my studio through the front garden, please be careful not to trample any of the flowers, especially the roses. My Marie will most assuredly come down from heaven to reprimand us all if we should abuse her beautiful flowers. I was over here the other day, having my photograph taken for the newspaper, and the photographer said, "Stand still and lean up against the picture." So I leaned against the picture. A lady who was standing nearby watched very interestingly. When I had finished, I started to move, and she said, "I thought you were a dummy." And I said, "No, I am not a dummy. I am Monsieur Gentilz." Well, at any rate, I am pleased to see this many of you in this class, but I will say this now. Please pay close attention. I do not want anyone in this class who is not absolutely serious about his or her work. Also, should you possess no artistic talent whatsoever, you probably have no business being in this class, wasting your time and mine. No? The beach. You know what that means? My little cabbage. We will meet here at 318 North Flores for the next several weeks. But there will be many days when we will take our lessons to the Plaza de Valero, the Plaza de Armas, and perhaps the Plaza de las Islas. And we will walk from here to the missions. Dress accordingly and wear comfortable shoes. Now that I am approaching 80, my students regard me as something of an oddity, an ancient relic. No, I was not here for the Battle of the Alamo. My paintings are signed T. Gentilz. The T stands for Theodore. Can you say Theodore? Très bien. And yes, I was born in France. I have retired from teaching at Le Collège de Saint-Marie for the simple reason that now the school has moved too far from my own. I've always wanted to be a painter. And as my card tells you, I was educated at the National School of Mathematics and Drawing in Paris. My father was a carriage maker. He made carriages for many of the royal families of Europe. I did not want to be a carriage maker. I wanted to be an artiste. So when Henri Castro made me an offer to travel in his employ as an artist, engineer, and surveyor for this new settlement he was planning on the Medina River, I accepted. I was tempted by the lure of adventure, the possibility of perhaps making my fortune in this new settlement Monsieur Castro was planning. Now, why I came to Texas is not so hard to understand. No, why I stayed is the interesting part. San Antonio was a city the likes of which I had never seen or experienced. I sailed from France to Galveston, then overland to San Antonio de Bayard. From a hill overlooking the city, I could see the missions, San Jose and Concepcion, two buildings I would return to again and again to sketch and to paint. From a hill overlooking the city, I could see these missions, and yet housing was difficult to obtain. I found myself enjoying the luxurious accommodations of the Hakol. You know this? A structure made with mesquite sticks chinked together with clay and a roof of more sticks. At night I would lie in bed, and in the ceiling of rushes there were spiders and scorpions and centipedes. Of course, this was their home before it was mine. San Antonio was a city of many peoples. Germans, Americans, a few Frenchmen, a few Irishmen, and many, many Mexicanos. However, for moi, it is this Mexican culture I find the most fascinating. What is here that you find the most interesting? What is here that you are burning with a passion to capture a paper? Think about this. I have never grown tired of watching the Mexican people, painting them over and over again. Perhaps you are familiar with my painting of the fandango? You know this? It is very spirited dance. The young caballeros dance while holding one candle in their hand like this. I first saw this dance when I was a very young man. I have tried to capture its spirit and its heart in my paintings. The young Mexican women with their dark hair and eyes and white skirts. The older women with their reboses hovering along the wall, always watching. A young man firing his pistol into the ceiling. I thank God I did not stay in Paris to make carriages. Never to swim in the San Antonio River. Never to see El Alamo. I have sketched her facade many times. When I first came to the Plaza de Valero in 1844, there was nothing around the periphery. There were those who were here who saw this famous battle, watching from El Potrero, the pasture formed by the bend in the river, where the soldiers have always kept their horses to protect them from the Apaches. The Apaches are very good at stealing horses. I was 8 years too late to see Santa Anna and his 5,000 men swarming over the old mission. Inside her walls, less than 200 men, women, and children left to defend the liberty of the Republic. I have spoken to many Americans and Mexicans who claim to have seen this famous battle, but their stories all conflict. There are so many contradictions. I have measured every foot of the Alamo and the grounds in order to place my paintings in the proper scale. How very important was this painting, Battle of the Alamo, to me. Many sketches. Many days I would paint over the previous day's work. And now, only a photograph of my work remains. The actual painting destroyed in a fire at Mueller's art supply store. This is God's way of saying to poor old Gentilz, do not be so precious about your art. It is a hard lesson. How many of you speak Spanish? If you are going to live in this city, you should learn its language. I determined to learn to speak Spanish from the first day I arrived in San Antonio. Every day I would swim in the river, walk the streets of the city, and practice my new language. It was not far from Soledad Street that I saw my first Indians driving herds of horses. Rarely were there any confrontations, but now and then a Mexican woman would come to do her laundry on the banks of San Pedro Creek, would be wounded by their arrows. Pobre derrière. La la. The real reason I came to Texas, because of Henry Castro, the great capitalist. I waited for him to arrive from France. And then finally, September 1st, 1844, a party of Frenchmen, Alsatians, and 23 Mexicanos left San Antonio. It was raining, a downpour. 22 carts, carretas, horses, accompanied by our leader, Monsieur Castro, and a party of armed guards. We made our way over a 25-mile trail to the clear waters of the Medina. The trip was très difficile, and I would later realize the trip was the easy part. I worked for Castro as an engineer and surveyor for this new settlement. In return for an agreement to help settle Castroville, I was given land to farm, to cultivate. This was going to make me a rich man. I am no farmer. You should have seen me tending to my fields, acting like I knew what I was doing. Très ridiculous. I returned to San Antonio after 2 years in Castroville. The employ of Monsieur Castro, I made many trips between this new community and San Antonio. Many times on foot. Often on the trail I would encounter Comanches or Lipans, Apaches. And it was indeed fortunate that I was not captured or killed, for this did happen to immigrants in this Texas. The Indians were extremely curious about my paints and my sketchbook and why I would want to put them in my pictures. I made a small sketch of a Comanche chief and gave it to him as a present. That and a much-desired pouch of tobacco. In return, he allowed me to paint his portraits. Now, there's Indians, the most incredible people of this earth. I fear they will all be shot, for the expansion of the land does not stop. I know that now more and more immigrants arrive. The Indian must travel to the land not inhabited by the white man. This he does not do of his own free will. Quelle tragedy. With the door open like this, can you smell my Marie's roses? Those flowers for our children. Those flowers and our dog, Pauline. Perhaps you can find Pauline in several of my paintings. A small brown dog with silly little ears. Mr. Boy. My wife was my very best student. Such talent, such commitment. Sometimes at night, when the house is very still, I can hear her playing the piano, singing the light, sweet voice of hers. So, let me conclude today's lesson with informing you that as students in my class, you will receive instruction in all kinds of drawing and painting, linear and aerial perspective. We will discuss ways in which an artist can use photography to an advantage. Yes, I do believe an artist can use a photograph to sketch from. I have no problem with this. You will learn the proper palette for oil, watercolor, crayon, portrait, figure, landscape. The mathematical tables needed to paint anything from a breed or that we'll see. But I will say this now, amateurs in my studio are a nuisance. I have no patience with dabblers or ineptness. So, tomorrow, you are to bring 4 drawings in charcoal. A person, an animal, a botanical representation, and an architectural structure. Bring only paper and pencil, no paints. Any questions? Class dismissed.